We were taught a version of history that left out entire lives, communities, and contributions. This is an exploration of Black American history through the truths hidden behind the textbooks. Not to rewrite history, but to finally complete it. This is Heritage, Black American History, What Was Left Out. Chapter 1. The Black Codes. Across the South after the Civil War, at least 13 Southern states passed black codes to restrict the movement, labor, and basic rights of formerly enslaved people. These laws made it illegal to be unemployed, to travel freely, or to refuse unfair labor contracts. Although slavery had ended, these codes recreated its control through legal punishment rather than physical chains, convict leasing, and forced labor. Thousands of black men were arrested under minor charges and leased to private companies as prison labor. States earned massive profits from this system, and in some regions it became one of the largest sources of government income. Convict leasing turned incarceration into a business model that relied on racialized arrests. Foundation of Jim Crow. The black codes evolved into segregation laws, voter suppression, and discriminatory policing. They established the legal logic that freedom could exist while equality was denied. This framework shaped racial control for generations. Chapter 2. Destroyed Black Communities. Widespread erasure. Between 1865 and 1930, over 100 black communities were attacked, burned, or dismantled across the United States. These were not random acts, but organized efforts that destroyed homes, schools, and businesses. Many of these towns vanished from maps and history books. Tulsa, Elaine, and Rosewood Greenwood in Tulsa was one of the wealthiest black districts in the world before it was burned in 1921. Similar destruction occurred in Elaine, Arkansas, and Rosewood, Florida, where entire populations were displaced. Survivors rarely received compensation. Economic warfare insurance companies denied claims and local laws prevented rebuilding. These acts erased generations of accumulated wealth. Prosperity itself became a target. Chapter 3. Black Wall Street, a self-sustaining economy. Greenwood had banks, theaters, newspapers, and professional services. Money circulated within the community, creating independence from external control. It was a model of collective success. National and international trade. White and international visitors traveled to Greenwood for business. The district was connected to broader markets and commerce networks. It was not isolated. It was thriving. Destruction without justice. The 1921 massacre destroyed over 200 homes and businesses. No one was convicted, and survivors were denied insurance. The community was erased without accountability. Chapter 4. Other Black Wall Streets. Thriving black towns. Communities like Boley, Mound Bayou, and Haiti built their own schools, banks, and governments. They demonstrated economic independence and cultural strength. Seneca Village. This free black community in New York was removed through eminent domain to build Central Park. Families lost land, property, and community. Rosewood, Florida, was burned and erased after racial violence. Its residents were forced to flee, and the town disappeared from official records. Chapter 5. Lynching and Land Theft. Targeting prosperity. Many black landowners and business leaders were lynched for their success. Violence was used to steal property and eliminate competition. Terror maintained economic control. Loss of black farmland. In 1910, black Americans owned millions of acres of land. By 1970, that number had dropped by nearly 90%. Discriminatory policies and violence drove this loss. Generational impact. Land is wealth, security, and legacy. Its loss widened the racial wealth gap. The effects continue today. Chapter 6. Stolen Inventions. Brilliant Innovators. Inventors like Garrett Morgan, Lewis Latimer, and Granville Woods changed transportation, lighting, and communication. Their work powered modern industry, erased credit, Many black inventors were denied recognition or compensation. Some patents were sold under pressure or ignored by major companies. Lost wealth. Innovation should have created generational wealth. Instead, profits were diverted. History rarely credits these pioneers. Chapter 7. Criminalized Literacy, Banned Education. Several states outlawed teaching enslaved people to read. Knowledge was considered dangerous. Long-term effects. After emancipation, black schools were underfunded and segregated. Educational gaps were not accidental. Reclaiming knowledge education became a form of resistance. Literacy became freedom. Chapter 8. Systematic land loss. Land is the foundation of wealth, security, and political power. The systematic loss of black-owned land in the United States represents one of the largest transfers of wealth in American history. Discriminatory lending, USDA banks. After emancipation, black farmers built communities and farms across the South. By 1910, black Americans owned approximately 14 to 15 million acres of farmland, nearly 14% of all U.S. farmers at the time. However, beginning in the 1920s and accelerating through the mid-20th century, black farmers were routinely denied access to government loans, crop insurance, and disaster relief through the U.S. Department of Agriculture. White farmers received approvals faster, larger loan amounts, and lower interest rates. Black farmers often faced intentional delays until planting seasons passed, forcing them into debt or foreclosure. This discrimination was later confirmed by federal investigations and court findings. By 1970, black land ownership had fallen by nearly 90% to roughly 2 million acres. This was not market failure, it was policy failure. Heirs property laws, forced partition sales. Another major driver of land loss was heirs property law, a legal loophole affecting families without formal wills. When a landowner died without a will, property was split among heirs as tenants in common, often across generations. Outside speculators could purchase just one heir's small share, then petition courts to force a partition sale of the entire property. Families were legally compelled to sell land they had owned for generations, often at below-market prices. Today, heirs property affects millions of acres, disproportionately harming black families in the South. This system legally transferred wealth without violence, using courts instead of mobs. As Pigford v. Glickman, justice delayed. In 1999, black farmers sued the USDA in Pigford v. Glickman, alleging decades of racial discrimination in loan programs. The court ruled in their favor, resulting in over $2 billion in settlements. However, most farmers had already lost their land. Compensation did not restore farms, communities, or generational wealth. Justice came decades late, after the economic foundation had already been erased. Why this still matters today? Because land equals leverage. Without land, families cannot borrow against property, cannot secure business loans, cannot pass down assets. This loss created a wealth gap that still shapes access to capital, entrepreneurship, and housing today. Chapter 10. Reconstruction Betrayed. After the Civil War, America stood at a crossroads. For a brief moment, black citizens gained political power, built institutions, and reshaped democracy, before those gains were violently reversed. Political power. During Reconstruction, more than 2,000 black Americans held public office at the local, state, and federal levels. Black legislators helped establish public education systems, passed civil rights laws, and expanded voting rights across the South. For the first time in U.S. history, democracy included formerly enslaved people as full participants in shaping the nation. This era proved that political inclusion could transform communities. Black voters organized, held leaders accountable, and built coalitions. Hope was not theoretical. It was happening. Jim Crow's return. That progress was dismantled through intimidation, voter suppression, and violent terror. Groups like the Ku Klux Klan targeted black leaders and voters, while states passed literacy tests, poll taxes, and grandfather clauses to block political participation. By the early 1900s, Black voter registration in some southern states fell by over 90%. Democracy was legally and violently closed to millions. Reconstruction ended not with reconciliation, but with erasure. The ongoing legacy, the effects of this reversal are still visible today, in voter suppression efforts, economic inequality, and political representation. Systems created to block progress were never fully dismantled. They evolved. History is not behind us. It is still unfolding. Reconstruction showed what was possible when freedom was paired with opportunity. Black communities built schools, businesses, political institutions, and entire cities, only to see those gains dismantled through violence, policy, and economic sabotage. From the black codes to burned towns, from stolen land to stolen inventions, from criminalized literacy to the collapse of the Freedman's Bank, each chapter reveals the same pattern. When progress emerged, it was cut down, not by accident, but by design. And that design still echoes today, in who gets loans, in who builds businesses, in who inherits wealth, in who is forced to start again and again. This is not only a story about the past, it is a system that still shapes the present. That is why this does not end here. Each chapter is open for source-based investigation, discussion, and lived dialogue inside the Righteous Villains Truth School on School. Every topic is explored through books, academic research, archives, and verified sources, not opinions or narratives. History was not erased to be forgotten. It was erased so its consequences would be misunderstood, not to rewrite history, but to finally complete it.